Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill. Joining me today are Graham Noble, Dave Patterson, Michelle White, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. More dangerous symptoms of Trump derangement syndrome have come to glaring light as some members of Congress have taken up sides with members of the Venezuela cartels. This after September airstrike on a drug-running boat headed for American shores. Don't be fooled by the cries from the left. Trump's decision saved thousands of lives who could have died from fentanyl-laced drugs. So let's get into this nonsense by the progressive left. Do we really have the right weapon for the war on drugs? Or is this another showboating situation, Michelle?
Well, they're definitely showboating. Trump is, like I said in an earlier question, he's throwing the kitchen sink at this problem of Venezuelan narco-terrorists, and they're losing their minds. But it's the usual suspects attacking him, right? It's Congressman Jamie Raskin. He's saying that the Congress needs to declare war. This is not war. The last 40 years of declaring war on drugs has not been working. So he's doing something different. And we're not declaring war. We're stopping terrorists from coming into our country, just like we would if they were ISIS trying to come over the border, or at least Trump would. The last administration didn't. But by the way, our third president, Thomas Jefferson, fought 4 Muslim states and stood up to all of their intimidation and sent the U.S. Navy and the Marines when the Barbary pirates were attacking merchant ships and taking our sailors hostage. So this is no different. They're not taking hostages, but they're killing thousands of Americans. So I think blowing them out of the water is absolutely constitutional. We do have precedent for it. And for anyone to say that it's not, it's showboating, it's grandstanding, and it's TDS. It's ridiculous. The others that are speaking out against him, Adam Schiff, enough said. Anything that Trump does, he's just going to be unreasonable about. And he wants to pass legislation that's going to tie the president's hands. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I don't think he's going to have the support. But I did watch an interview yesterday with a North Carolina Congressman, Pat Harrigan, and he said there's broad bipartisan support to do something different, also recognizing that nothing has worked in combating not just fentanyl, but drugs. So I think we just have to wait and see what Congress is going to do as these strikes continue. But he absolutely has the power to do this, and I think he has the backing of the vast majority of Americans.
Oh, I think he does too. And but I wonder if the congressional Democrats have enough support to rain hell on Trump, Graham.
I don't think ultimately they do have. I know they'd like to, and I know that there are a lot of Republicans in Congress who, when they're not spending their day searching eBay for a spine, they are
Murkowski, Rand Paul.
They're quite willing to jump in, and and I love Rand Paul in so many ways, but his kind of rabid pacifism, as I like to describe it, is just out of hand. Unfortunately, I think Rand Paul, even if we were under direct attack from a foreign military power, I think Rand Paul would be saying, "Oh no, we can't deploy the troops. Let's get together and discuss this." But anyway, I don't think ultimately the Democrats are going to be able to rein Trump in on this, because it's just too the negative consequences of Congress passing legislation that forever ties a president's hand in terms of taking certain military actions against foreign adversaries of whatever type. That's too dangerous, because then you're going to get to the point where certain of our foreign adversaries look at us and say, well, their president is not going, if we do this, their president's not going to be able to do this or this or this. He's going to have to go to Congress first, and they're going to discuss it, and they're going to have some committee meetings and some very expensive luncheons, and eventually they'll agree to talk about agreeing to something. And it's never going to work. So for that reason, I believe there are enough thankfully, there are probably just about enough Republicans and probably a few Democrats who, at the end of the day, will stand up and say, we just can't do this. We cannot, okay, we can't stand Trump. We hate him. He's the worst person ever. But we still can't completely tie his hands, because if we do that, future presidents' hands are also tied, and that could lead to a very bad situation.
Does Trump even care about what the progressives are threatening, Dave?
I believe that when it comes to killing narco-terrorists and destroying their boats, President Trump keeps his own counsel. And
Right.
to date, I think he realizes that the majority of Americans actually do favor proactive attacks on drug runners, those people who want to visit death on the United States communities. It shows something that we don't think about, and that is that the cartels now realize that they don't have the protection that they used to have that came from Venezuelan President Maduro, and it simply doesn't exist anymore. And that means also that the money Maduro lined his pockets with is going away as well. Interestingly, most recently, President Trump has ordered a complete blockade on all sanctioned oil tankers leaving and entering Venezuela. So that's something new. And he's upping the ante with each passing day. Basically, Trump wants Maduro gone and has established a pretty formidable naval armada just outside Venezuelan territorial waters to show Maduro he means business. The Trump gambit is not without its drawbacks, though, because Russia, China, and Cuba all have advisors in Venezuela. And if it escalates to a conflict, we've got to be very careful that we're not whacking Russians and Chinese. Don't care too much about
Sorry about the Russians. You got in the way.
Yeah, I don't care too much about the Cubans, but there's 25,000 of them with 500 active duty or active military personnel serving as trainers. So it's something to be concerned with, but we'll just have to wait and see. But like I say, I don't think Trump worries too much about the progressives and their Trump derangement syndrome, which is what an unintended consequence of TDS, and that is that now you don't believe anything they say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to jump in here after what you said, Dave. You talk about the advisors, so-called advisors in Venezuela, the Russians and the Chinese. Well, for a start, I think I don't think we should concern ourselves with them, because I think Trump should just tell the Russians and the Chinese, if your advisors happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, that's not my fault.
Yeah, it gets your advisors out of the country.
But the other thing is that you see that really, you know what, this is not actually about the drugs. I mean, fentanyl isn't. I'm always been against drug bans on drugs, if we're talking other type of drugs, but fentanyl is literally a lethal substance.
Well, it is if you mix it with other stuff.
I
mean, fentanyl is necessary for people, in the hospital, cancer.
Sure, it is, but
fighters.
So it's literally. I mean, I heard Trump.
But you wrap it up in an illegal drug, and it's going to kill you.
Lethal, yeah. So I think it should be. But here's the thing: this whole thing with Venezuela, it's not about the drugs. I mean, hitting some drug boats, that's all about, okay, Maduro is definitely is lining his pockets, certainly, with illicit drug money. Blowing these drug boats up is affecting Maduro personally, probably, and affecting his regime. And so that's a good thing. But this whole thing, it's not, the drugs that's a whole kind of B story here, because the real story is that Venezuela is a danger to the United States because it is so close to us, and it is open doors to the Russians and the Chinese and various other people who seek to do us harm. And that's really what it's about. It's not really about the drugs.
So, Andrew, are we just poking the bear?
All right. You're all going to hate me after I provide this little response here. But I'll say this.
So I'm going to have to start, deciding whether or not I'm going to have you on my tail.
If Scott Cosenza, he's our legal affairs editor, he's a great constitutionalist, he's a non-interventionist. If he were here, I'd ask him point blank, Does America have the authority, legal authority, to do all these attacks on Venezuela? I'll also preface this by saying, Michelle's absolutely right. The United States has failed on this war on drugs. This is one of the most costliest and ineffective battles that the United States has ever embarked upon. Now, without that being, also, I'll say this too. I completely oppose Nicolas Maduro. Socialism has destroyed Venezuela. It used to be a beacon of wealth, but then Chavez and all his group, all those thugs, that destroyed Venezuela. But now, I do have questions about this with these attacks. One is that, do we have evidence that Venezuela is all of a sudden now manufacturing the drugs? There's many people, including, Michelle's not going to like this, Senator Rand Paul, who says there's not much evidence suggesting that Venezuela is participating in this. Second, when Graham said that it's not just about drugs, he's correct. But there's also one other thing, two other things. Sorry. Oil. Venezuela is sitting on one of the largest known reserves of oil in the world. Two, it's also about regime change. They want to kick out Maduro. That's no secret at all. But the problem with that is that if you succeed in this regime change, that's going to backfire on the rest of Latin America. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he regularly talks about how the region is going through a complete transformation politically, how it's turning right. A lot of elections have resulted in conservative leaders. However, if the United States is going to kick out Maduro and his socialist regime, that could backfire, meaning that other countries will then resort back to leftist regimes and saying, well, the United States is not going to, Western countries are not going to support our political decision, so why should we vote the way that is? Last thing too, polls. I saw a recent poll, CBS News poll, and it showed that, maybe question the source of it, but look deeper, it's pretty even. Anyway, poll showed that 70% of Americans oppose taking military action in Venezuela. And this is the constant theme for the last 100 years. Americans oppose a war, but politicians keep demanding a war. So, I'm going to wait for Scott Cosenza's answer. Maybe Mr. Graham could answer that question too. But for now, I'm on the sidelines of whether this is a good thing or a bad thing.
I think the answer to a little bit of your question and concern is that it was kind of methodical that Trump would designate narco-terrorists as a foreign terrorist organization, which then leads to the opportunity to do far more invasive and, I guess, permanent solutions to some of these problems. What I find interesting is that the media consistently says the alleged drug runners. Yeah. Never mind that when the missile hits the boat, there are all these packages of fentanyl flying everywhere.
They're now at the boat.
These are not alleged drug runners. They are drug runners.
Yeah. It's not ticker tape parade stuff.
Well, here's the thing about that. You look at those boats, and you look at those outboard engines. Each one of those boats has got a roughly, I would say, about $150,000 worth of engines on the back.
Damn.
Those are not poor fishermen, and those are not people who are resupplying the little islands with fuel, as the left is now claiming. No, you don't have $150,000 worth of engines if you're going out to catch some mackerel.
And what do you do for fishing tackle when you're in a semi-submersible? That's what I want to know.
Right. Well, it does appear that the progressive left is not interested at all in saving the lives of American constituents. Trump, at least, is targeting and removing the very same people that were at the last rave, taking money from your teen to get that ultimate high. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. A special thank you to Lisa K. Donner, Scott Cosenza, and Michelle White for picking up where I left off on C5. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all as well. Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Stop by to see our new aggregate polling operation, The Public Square. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today, and get your fix of free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com.